exercising when interacting with local or immigration law enforcement. Um, and you don't have to be, part of a certain identity to be able to use this information to protect yourself. This is really for folks in our immigrant community, allies, what have you. So thank you for being here. Before we get started, I do want to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Juan David Garza. I use he, him pronouns, and my title with CERC is Legal Services Manager. Um, I'm not actually an attorney, so we could go to the next slide. Just really quick, I want to provide a caveat for this presentation. This information we're about to give y'all is pretty general information, meaning that we could get this from, a quick Google search on the internet. Maybe a library has some of this info readily available if that's more your thing. But essentially, none of this information should be used, should be taken as legal consultation or advice. If you do have a legal question, we really encourage you to reach out to an immigration attorney, if it is immigration, or a licensed attorney that's going to be better equipped to answer your questions. We have a pretty packed agenda today, so I'm gonna do my best to keep us on time. We're gonna start with a Know Your Rights presentation, where we're gonna go over some history in regards to immigration law here in Colorado. We're gonna go over the Constitution and amendments. If you don't know what those are, we're gonna touch on those a bit, and then we're gonna really put that into practice with some role-playing scenarios that my compañeros are gonna help me out with. Then we're gonna go over what's called the Family Preparedness Packet. I'll tell you more about it later, but really, this packet is to help guide folk who may be eligible or have a family member, have someone in their family who could potentially enter deportation proceedings. Um, and after that, we should have around 5, 10 minutes for questions just with this group that we have now. But we're actually going to have an attorney sign on from 7:30 to 8 to answer some questions y'all have. So um, really appreciate y'all's presence and patience as we get ready for this. I think we should go ahead and get started. Here you go to the next slide. So really quick, on the left-hand side, we have the slides in English. The right-hand side, we have the slides in Spanish. If you could look at the left slide, we do have the number on here for Colorado Rapid Response Network. Typically, you could call this line and report incidents that are happening with ICE. If you hear ICE is going to be in a certain spot, maybe doing certain things, and you want someone to check it out, that's really what this line is for. So feel free to save this number now if you want to keep that handy. Um, and yeah, we just wanted to share that resource with y'all. Um, our first info for this, the slide's really small, is we want to take everyone back to mid 2000s. It says on this slide, I believe like 2006 in Colorado. If anyone has been living in Colorado since then, this may not be new information to you, but essentially what we want to highlight is in mid 2000s, along with Georgia, Colorado was actually one of the first states to pass a law called Show Me Your Papers, or in Colorado it was SB 90. And why was it nicknamed Show Me Your Papers? Because it really encouraged local law enforcement, so police, sheriffs, maybe state patrol, to act, more of like an immigration law official. And basically, what I'm getting at is it allowed local law enforcement to make arrests, make investigations, pursue investigations on folk who, maybe you thought, um, believed, assumed that they were undocumented. And if a local law enforcement did interact with someone that they thought maybe undocumented, they were encouraged to make an arrest so that this person could be entered into the system and eventually get picked up by ICE. And this was really encouraging collaboration with our local law enforcement and our immigration law enforcement, but also giving encouragement to police to act outside of their responsibility and role. So we want to highlight that because it is very important to know where we're coming from, understand, some people why they have these stories is because it was, I want to say, a pretty toxic place, at least during this time. Luckily now, thanks to a lot of advocacy, a lot of organizing, this law is no longer alive in Colorado. Some other states, however, do have a law similar to this. It's still pretty alive today. On the next slide, we want to touch on an act that was passed in 2013, um, called the Community and Law Enforcement and Trust Act. Essentially, why we want to talk about this is because it put an end to Show Me Your Papers law, or SB 90. It repealed that law, really focusing on hone, building some trust with local law enforcement and our communities here in Colorado. Because if you could imagine, let's say we're someone who may be vulnerable to interacting with the immigration and customs enforcement deportation system, but we're witnessing a crime, or maybe we're being a victim of a crime. Your first thought might be call 911, call help, someone to come figure out the situation. A lot of folk actually weren't doing this because of this law. So thanks to a lot of organizing, a lot of folk in the community like yourselves gathering and sharing their stories to folk who make laws, um, this act was passed in 2013 and helped put an end to SB 90. A couple more laws we want to talk about on the next slide. Um, I don't have the titles memorized, but first off, wasn't really a law passed in 2014 we want to touch on, but more a result of organizing, building relationships with our local sheriffs. And as of 2014, we had all Colorado sheriffs decide not to respond to immigration detention holds or orders. What that looks like, we're going to show you in a couple of minutes, but essentially, what an immigration detention hold is a piece of paper that was filled out by an ICE agent. It's basically a request from an immigration official asking local law enforcement, usually a sheriff, hey, I see you have Juan David in your jail. It looks like he's going to be released on this day. Could you actually hold him, a day, a couple days, maybe a week past when he was supposed to be released so that we, ICE, can go pick him up and work on A, B, or C. So really, really just collaboration between police and ICE that we didn't really want to see. Luckily, in 2014, we had all the sheriffs decide not to respect those because they had the power to do that. In 2019, we're going to fast forward a little bit. HB 1124 was passed, really putting a lot of language into place that wasn't there before, focused on limiting collaboration with police and ICE. And then finally, in 2020, SB 83 was passed, prohibiting civil arrests happening on anyone who is on their way, currently at court, or on their way back from attending court proceedings. If you've ever heard of like the right to due process, or if anyone has ever had to go to court for, let's say, a driving ticket or something small like that, it was actually common that folk may have not even went to their court date for something, they was just going to end in a fine, or maybe they weren't even guilty of, because around this time, it was a common practice for ICE to intercept folk on their way to, at, or from court, to then get detained. So really a lot of um, aggressive policing that doesn't really support our community safety, being addressed with these laws. Cool. We could go to the next slide. Um, if Well, okay, so one more overview of some protections of immigrants in Colorado. I'm not going to go over every win that's on this page, so we can just take some time to look at these wins. Um, yeah, if anyone has questions as far as cover all Coloradans, driver's licenses, unemployment fund for immigrants, I want to give you some time to read this. But essentially, there has been, other work done to offer protections and open up access to resources that are really crucial for folk to, get to work, pay for groceries, access to healthcare, um, to name a few wins on this slide. But we also want to recognize there's still, attacks as far as access to some of these really crucial benefits, um, crucial resources that folk need, to say that there's still a lot more work that can be done. Cool. Awesome, y'all. So, we did learn a little bit about the history here in Colorado, in regards to, laws that really affect our immigrant communities or actually focused on our immigrant communities. If y'all are like me, though, history is not always my favorite subject. So next, we're actually gonna get, I believe we have, is it our scenarios? We could go to the next slide. Oh, we're almost there. Cool. So we went over some history. Some of y'all might be getting confused with, local law enforcement and immigration law enforcement. So we really just want to highlight a couple different terms, or positions folk can hold in these different spaces. So on the next slide, we have four different law officials that you could see, in your community. First up, we have police. Um, what we want to explain about um, these different law officials is that they do have, different responsibilities, and are sometimes tied to certain geographical areas. So we talk a lot about working outside of what these folk are supposed to do. So we want to show you where they're supposed to be doing their job. So police, really, they're going to be tied down to a certain city, municipality. I always say if you're driving in Longmont, Colorado, and you run a stop sign, you're probably not going to get pulled over by Denver police because Denver are going to be working in Denver. You're, if anyone does see that running a red stop sign, it's probably going to be a Longmont police officer. Sheriffs still exercising local law enforcement. Um, their jurisdiction is going to be a little bit bigger than just a city. So let's say we ran the same stop sign in Longmont. It could be a Longmont police officer, patrolling that area, or it could be a Boulder County sheriff. So Boulder County covers a couple towns, including Longmont, I believe. So um, kind of similar, should just be focusing on local law enforcement, but a bigger jurisdiction. You might also see a sheriff serving certain papers like eviction notices, official documents. Sometimes they're working more in the jails, stuff like that. And then finally, our last local law enforcement could be a state patrol officer. So we have a station close to Fort Collins in the north. And essentially, they're still local law enforcement, but their jurisdiction would cover the whole state. So you might see them more on the main roads in the cities or on the highway. Um, that's an explanation of what local law enforcement you might see in Colorado or across the states. The last law official, enforcement official we want to highlight is immigration and customs enforcement officials. And these folk are part of the federal government, meaning that their jurisdiction really is the whole country, not tied down to a specific community or state. And really, ICE agents should be the only law enforcement enforcing immigration law. So, kind of how we just explained in this history of Colorado, these different folk have different roles, but essentially, none of these local law officials should be enforcing immigration law. Um, I know this is a webinar, so we don't really have too much space for people to speak up. and share their stories. But we just want to leave you with this question to have you think the importance of having trust within, the folk that say they're here to protect our communities, and recognizing that there could be a lot of negative feelings when talking about some of these situations, and especially the scenarios we're about to get into. What are the feelings that are created in a community if a police officer does not fulfill his duties and abuses of power? Usually, a lot of people say fear and distrust, um, anxiety, stuff like that, which is not something we would really want to be passing around. So that is the end of the beginning of our Know Your Rights presentation. That was really an intro. We're gonna make this a little bit more interactive right now. So if my compañeras who are gonna be supporting with this, with the first scenario, could please turn on your camera, we can get started. Cool. And let me pull up my script really quick because we do have scripts. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, the green slide is good. We do have scripts we're about to use. So if you're saying, wow, are they just freestyling this scenario? No, we're not. We actually have a curriculum and a model where we teach folk how to offer these trainings, and I'm going to offer some more info on that. But if you could, um, imagine for a second, you're alongside me, and my compañera Kaylee. We're driving to work on our usual route, to stop and fill up our gas tank. And we're outside our car when two men dressed up in ordinary clothes approaches us, and they call my name. They start talking to me. These two people are immigration agents. Let's say they have their agent uniform on, and they have been following us.
Awesome. All right, let's get started with the scenario. All right. Good morning, JD. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Where are you going?
I'm going to my work.
Do you have papers or permission to work? I'm an immigration agent, and I need you to answer my questions honestly, because if you lie, I can detain you and hold you for further questions. Can you show me your driver's license, please?
I have no license, but here's my ID from the Venezuelan consulate.
Do you have papers?
I have papers to work, but they're not mine.
You are admitting that you are from another country and have no papers, but you are working with false work documents.
Yes, sir, I will not lie.
I need you to come with me. I'm detaining you to get your immigration status and criminal record.
Dang. All right. However we want to end that scene. Essentially, that didn't really go our way. Um, to explain what just happened. We were on our way to get gas. An ICE agent came up to us, and we told them some information that basically led to our arrest. So, just some questions for y'all to think about. Um, I think if you can, I don't know if we have access to the chat. I don't think we could put in the chat. If you want to write this down or just talk about it, um, what did the community member do well in this scenario? I think we told the truth. I said that I wouldn't lie, so that was pretty good. Um, Besides that, I think we could have handled the situation a little bit better. Um, some things the community member did do wrong, was give up information that we really didn't need to give up. One being that we're using, a work permit that might not be ours. But two, we actually gave up an ID that gives a lot of information to this immigration official that we might not have been aware of. So what we want y'all to take away from this scenario is that if an immigration agent approaches you for no reason on the street, You don't have to answer their questions. So we can go to the next slide. Cool. So with this information, we're gonna go through this scenario again, but try to navigate it a little bit better than I just did right now. You're gonna hear some phrases that we want y'all to pick up on. So let's see if you can catch it this time around. So let's try again.
All right. Good evening, JD. How are you?
Excuse me, who are you?
Are you not JD?
Excuse me, who are you?
I am an immigration and customs enforcement agent, and I need you to answer this question and to be honest, because if you lie, I could take you under custody.
Have I done something wrong? I
I
had my
want to know if you are JD and if you have immigration papers.
no, sir. No, sir. No, I'm not. If I have not done anything wrong, am I free to leave?
You are not free to leave. I am an immigration agent and I need you to answer me. I suspect that you are JD and that you are undocumented.
Uh, yes, I am, JD. I haven't done anything illegal though. I think I will leave now because I have a visitor coming to my house. Am I free to leave?
Yes, you are free to leave. Be careful.
Peace. Cool. So that was the end of that scenario. It ended a little bit better than the last scenario. And we can explain why right now on the next slide. But essentially, if you were paying attention, a lot less information was given out during the second time around with speaking with the ICE agent. Um, just like a police officer, ICE agents need to follow the Fourth Amendment, meaning that if they don't have a reason or probable cause to make an arrest or search you, they don't really have means to arrest you. Um, how do you know if you're being investigated or if you are detained? Um, we can ask. There's some phrases on the screen that you can use to figure out, what the heck is going on with this official that I'm having a conversation with. You may have heard it during this scenario right now, but have I done something wrong? Asking, what are the charges against me? And also, am I free to leave? Asking, am I being detained? Once we get the yes, you're free to leave, that's the green light to get on out of there. Um, you aren't even required to give your name to an ICE agent, so we want everyone to know that. That doesn't mean though that they won't try to interrogate you or intimidate you. So you saw Kaylee asked me if I was who I am twice, kind of trying to get more information out of me. But basically, if myself, I'm not an ICE agent, came up to any of y'all on the street and started asking you, hey, where are you going? Where are you from? Who is your family? You don't really have to answer any of my questions. It's very similar in this scenario. So we can go to the next slide. Cool. So some of y'all, may have picked up on some of the phrases we were using, or why we were able to navigate the situation how we did in the second scenario, and that's really because of three amendments that we're going to go over right now. What are amendments? They're rights that were created to protect anyone living in the United States, and these amendments actually live on a document called the Constitution. The Constitution was created when the country was first created to create, some sort of regulations and policies to make sure that folk living in the United States are protected or can be safe. And it is very, crucial to say that this Constitution, the amendments in here are for everyone living in the United States, regardless of, your immigration status, A, B, or C, what have you. So on the next slide, really quick, I just want to explain to y'all what the heck is the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment. So the Fourth Amendment does have the key word probable cause. Basically, to arrest someone, to search someone's property, to frisk someone, um, in a law enforcement official needs probable cause. So they need an actual reason um, to be, pursuing this activity. They can't just pick anyone on the street and say, "Hey, let me look through your car. Let me look through your stuff. Let me put you in handcuffs for no reason." Um, the fifth, we'll get into probable cause in just a little bit. The Fifth Amendment, if anyone has, are into like NCIS, the investigation shows, you may have heard this on TV or other places before. You have the right to remain silent. So to remember this one, I always, put the five fingers up for the Fifth Amendment and put them over my mouth, letting, folk know that I'm not going to say anything. I'm using my right to remain silent. Why would we want to do that? Like we just saw in the last scenario, sometimes we can give out information that we don't even know could get us into problems. So sometimes it's best to not give up information if we don't need to. Lastly, the Sixth Amendment, the right to know the charges against an individual, against oneself. So as you saw in the last scenario, I asked, am I free to leave? Are there any charges? What are the charges? There were none, So just asking that question helped clarify what was going on and gave the green light for me to get out of there. We could go to the next slide. Cool. So it's a lot of terms being thrown around. Really quick, I want to explain what probable cause is. It's essentially it's a requirement. It's a reason, an adequate reason that a police officer notices that then gives them, authority to conduct a search or seize property, look through someone's property. So I like to explain it as anything a police officer can notice, see, or hear that leads them to believe a crime has been conducted or is being conducted that gives them reason to conduct a search or conduct an arrest. A major exception to this, however, is consent. So if anyone has been in a traffic stop or something like that, and they've been asked, can I search your car? And you say yes, that's a good example of giving someone consent to search your car. Cool. Cool. So before we get into our next scenario, just really quick, we want to let y'all know that you have the right to document and record everything, whether this be on your phone or writing on some sort of piece of paper, notepad, whenever we interact with law officials. So we could go to the next slide. Um, that doesn't mean that when interacting with police or ICE agents, they won't tell you, "Hey, you can't do that. Put your phone away." But we want to let you know that you do have the right to record these interactions. In Colorado, we're a one-party consent state, so you don't need consent of the other party to record them in these interactions. You can actually record as a bystander if you're not the one being interrogated, but you just so happen to be there. And we just really want to urge everyone to prioritize safety, communicate if you are pulling something out of your pocket, if you need to go in your bag, and we're already in these interactions with local law enforcement. Um, if you're in like a traffic stop or something like that, which we're actually going to get into our next scenario, feel free to take your phone out before the interaction even starts. Cool. So y'all have a little bit of new information. Um, in regards to knowing your rights. So let's see if, going through this next scenario, if you could pick up on some of the things we don't do so well and some things that we do well. So this will be an interaction not with a police officer or not with an ICE agent, but actually with a police officer. So we're in the park. I'm in the park with friends and family after a week of work, and a policeman comes up to us. And basically, the police officer is looking for excuses to take the victim, take me to jail. So let's see if y'all could pick up on how we navigate this situation.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
What are you doing here?
I'm chilling with my friends. It's been a long week of work, sir.
I need all of you to show me your identifications.
Sir, with all due respect, I think we've done nothing wrong. Are we free to go?
No, you are not free to leave. We got a complaint that you crossed private property and that you are making lots of noise. I need to identify you because we are investigating this complaint.
With all due respect, sir, I will not identify myself because I feel like we're not doing any harm. We haven't committed any crimes and we did not cross the property.
Are you saying that you're refusing to identify yourself? I'm telling you, I'm stopping you for crossing private property. Do you refuse to identify yourself?
I don't have to give you my name when I have done nothing wrong.
Put your hands behind your back. I'll take you to jail for not identifying yourself and for disobeying a police officer.
All right. Um, so that didn't go how we wanted it to go. Um, we did our best not to give out any information and ended up getting arrested. I don't know if y'all know why, but essentially, we can go to the next slide. Um, and this can vary from state to state. When interacting with a police officer, it's actually a little bit different than interacting with an immigration official. Um, so you actually have to give, in the state of Colorado, you have to give your full legal name and your date of birth to a police officer whenever we're under an investigation. So this could be a traffic stop, or in this case, we're at the park getting investigated by a police officer. He let us know that or they let us know that the crime we were being accused of was crossing into private property. And we did not give our name or any other information, so that led to an arrest. There's a couple ways that we could navigate this situation on the next slide, um, and get out of there safe, or at least provide the necessary information we need to give a police officer when in these interactions. Oh, was there a slide before this? No? Okay. So essentially, one way you could give a police officer that information is if you give them, hey, my name is Juan David Garza, my birthday is da 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 da, and there we are complying with state laws. Another way we can provide this information is by using any government ID. So for folk who do have driver's licenses, or something like that with your name and birth date, you can actually um, show that to the police officer and meet that necessary information that we need to give. Now, we do want to be careful with what documents we use if we have a choice, because, like we learned in the first scenario, giving up IDs or documents that show you're a citizen of another country could actually give away that information. So we're gonna try this one more time, um, but we're gonna do it the right way.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
What are you doing here? Are you drinking?
No, sir. I'm just walking with the family.
Where are you from?
Can I help you with something, officer? Have I done something wrong? Am I free to leave?
We are investigating a complaint from a neighbor that a group of people crossed private property and are making a lot of noise in the park. I need you to identify yourself.
Sir, as you see, we're not making any fuss. We're simply spending time with friends. Are we free to leave?
No, you cannot leave. I just need you to identify yourselves to clarify things.
Well, my name is JD Garza, and my date of birth is insert real date of birth here. Sorry, I left my ID at home.
You don't have any ID with you?
Unfortunately, not, sir.
Are you sure you are not making that much noise around here? the lady seemed quite annoyed.
Not really. We haven't been making noise like that. I actually like a quieter environment also. And the truth is that we're just here eating and enjoying our time with each other. Maybe it was some other people.
Well, please do not make too much noise so that you don't disturb the neighbors. Have a nice day.
Cool. So this was the slide I was looking for. But essentially, we got out of that situation a lot better than we did the first time. And the only thing really different was that we gave our name and our date of birth. So that's the big point we want to make here in the difference between interacting with immigration officials and police. Remember, when interacting with immigration officials, you really don't have to answer any questions, and you can actually use your right to remain silent throughout the whole conversation. Here with the police officer, we did do some back and forth, but what's really important is that we do give them our full legal name and date of birth if we are under investigation. So I named already a couple ways that you could um, meet this necessary information requirement. So simply just give up your name, identify yourself, use a government ID, or you could use a non-government ID with that information. But we always want to ask, especially if we think someone is holding us longer than they should be, am I free to leave? Which goes to the Sixth Amendment. It's not easy. Sometimes we can get caught up in these situations, but as long as we remember some of this information and we know when we don't have to give up information, you can see in these scenarios, it could end up in different ways. So we got one more scenario for y'all, but we could go to the next slide. Um, Not the best share of information if we didn't give you a little bit more information because this last scenario is a bit different. So warrants 101, really quick is we're gonna explain what warrants are. Um, Warrants are typically signed by a judge, and what I want to say is that they often they do meet the probable cause requirement. So if an officer, an immigration agent does come up to your property, and they do have a warrant with the right information on it, they actually do have probable cause to either A, conduct an arrest if it is an arrest warrant they have for one person, or B, conduct a search on one's property if they do have the necessary information on that warrant. Um, we can go to the next slide. So, what is a search warrant? What does it look like? This is an example of a search warrant, I believe, from Teller County here in Colorado. What we really want to understand about this document is that one, it really needs to have a judge's signature on here to hold any weight. But two, it should be very specific about what property is looking to be searched and what is looking to be found. It should have an address if it is for a home or someone's residence, and it does need to have a date of when specifically the search should take place. So this is what a search warrant looks like, which is probable cause to conduct a search. On the next slide, we have an arrest warrant, also from Teller County. And you'll see very bold on this checklist. It also needs to have a judge's signature, really giving it the authority to meet probable cause. But this is should be for a specific person. So it's going to have the person's full name, a physical description to the best of their knowledge, date of birth and social security number, if applicable, list of charges, whether it be one or more, why do y'all are y'all conducting this arrest? And like the search warrant, a date when this activity should actually happen. Um, Really important to know what these look like, um, especially if maybe we can't read this document. Um, Very important to be able to understand what's being shown in front of us, as you'll see in this next scenario. So we go to the next slide. Um, Really quick, I promise, I believe this is going to be the last documents we put in front of y'all's face that look very intimidating like this. But essentially, it has been the practice before to use different pieces of paper that actually don't get a judge's signature, don't constitute as warrants, but have been used to intimidate folk, to allow them to be arrested or have their property searched. So if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, I talked about immigration detainer hold requests, which is on the right side of the screen. These are essentially the requests made from ICE to local law enforcement to hold people past their time spent in jail. We hear that phrase, you do the crime, you gotta do the time. Well, people were doing their time and still being held past, their release date. And we can go to the next slide. Um, I just really want to reiterate that the pieces of paper that actually hold weight to arrest someone or search someone's property need to be warrants and they need to have a judge's signature. These immigration detainer holds, active notices, requests are not signed by a judge. They do not create probable cause. They're really just requests. They're not mandatory and can be refused by local governments. They've actually been deemed unconstitutional in the state of Colorado. So just wanna be wary of in these situations. If we can, do our best to keep a level head and really look at what's being presented in front of us. So with that, we're gonna go to our last scenario, um, which is really a home raid. So before we get into that, don't open the door. Don't open the door. Now that we know what the warrants look like, if we do find ourselves in this situation with a home raid, first thing we want to do is ask for a warrant, put it on your window. If ask them to put it on the window so we could take a picture of it, record it, or if not, let's ask them to put the warrant under our door so that we can very clearly read what's being presented. Cool. So, um, cool. We're at a house party, y'all. We're at home having a good time with our friends and family. Suddenly, we hear a knock on the door. Um, the owner of the home and their wife open the door and see that two law enforcement officers are there. They're actually two ICE agents who have come to the party, and they seem to be searching for someone specifically, Lupe Garcia, and they need to look for them in this property.
We are the police. Open the door.
Who is it? What is it that you're looking for?
We are the police and we are looking for Lupe Garcia. Open the door.
Yes, Lupe does live here. Have we done something wrong? We're just here with some friends and a party for my niece.
Can we come in so that we can chat calmly?
No, wait at the door while I look. Come in, sir. It's very cold outside. May I offer you a cup of coffee?
Yes, thank you. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. I am, uh, yeah, we are very pleased with my niece's party. Come on in. Yeah, come on in.
Whose house is this? Can I look around a little?
It's my husband's, who went looking for Lupe. And yes, you may come in and check around.
Here is Lupe. Sir, there is no problem, right? We're just spending time with the family.
You're not from here, are you? Where were you born?
I was born in Nayarit, Mexico.
Do you have an ID?
Just an electoral ID for Mexico.
This house is yours, right?
Yes, sir.
Look, sir, we come because we have a warrant against Lupe Garcia for violating an order to appear in court. You just admitted you don't have papers, and I'm going to have to take you with us as well to check your record. Please put your hands behind your back.
Mm. Okay, so same questions that we've asked before. What do you think the community did right? What do you think the community member did wrong? We had the ICE agent coming to our property. Um, Perhaps they did have a warrant. They did have a warrant specifically for Lupe Garcia, though. But they actually took Lupe and myself um, because they were able to obtain some information that we gave to them essentially. We could go to the next slide. So, given the information that we have received from this presentation, we're gonna do this scenario hopefully the right way. Let's see if y'all could pick up on the special phrases we're using and the rights that we're exercising in this scenario.
We are the police. Open the door.
Who is it? What are y'all looking for?
We are the police and we are looking for Lupe Garcia. Open the door.
Let's open it. I don't want to get in trouble.
Are you crazy? We must not open the door until we know what they want. Who is it? What do you want?
We are looking for Lupe Garcia for violating an order to appear in court. We have an arrest warrant. Open the door.
Let's open the door so we can see the warrant.
No, let's ask that they pass it under the door. Please pass the warrant under the door so that we can check and see if the person you are looking for is actually here in our house.
All right. But can we come in to search the house?
No, sir, I do not consent to a search of the home. JD, check and see if it is signed by a judge and has Lupe's full name and today's date.
He does have a warrant.
Yes, Lupe is here. Wait, I'll tell Lupe to come out.
Lupe, it is very important that you go and you turn yourself in so as not to put all of us at risk. When you leave, please be sure to cover the entry and close the door securely behind you. Lupe leaves the house. Cool. I mean, not cool. Not really the best situation, but thank you, Kaylee and Ida, for helping me out with that, with these scenarios. I hope y'all picked up on some of the lessons that we included tonight in this last scenario. We definitely checked for a warrant. Um, I almost got ourselves in trouble because I said that we should open the door, but remember, we don't really have to open the door, so we encourage you to never open the door. Going back to an exception of probable cause is if we consent to a search or an arrest, opening the door, believe it or not, is you, me offering consent, giving consent to an ICE agent, police official, what have you, to enter our house. So we really just want to encourage folk to never open the door. If they do have a warrant, remember, ask them to put it on the window or under the door, but do not open the door. Do not give consent to a search or raid. And when asked if a enforcement official can conduct a search, you can use these important phrases. I do not consent to a search. I do not consent to a raid. Um, so we could go to the next slide. That's about it for our scenarios. Um, Hopefully, they did help kind of solidify the information that we shared today over the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment. Um, and we just want to encourage folk to try to stay calm if you can during these situations because it is a really tough situation to be into. but knowing, what rights and protections are here to support folk, it could help folk, stay out of trouble. If we do find ourselves, at the other end of this situation and we are detained, we just want to offer a message that there still is hope. There's actually, as you see on this call, a lot of people in Colorado looking to protect our communities and not do the opposite of that. So thank y'all once again for being here. Um, if you do need, if you do find yourself in this situation and you do need support finding a lawyer, we're going to share some resources a little bit later in this call. But we're actually going to, wait, I can move forward. I believe start wrapping up this portion of Know Your Rights. If you do have any questions, again, please feel free to include them in the chat. We're gonna have a Q&A later on in this scenario. We can go to the next slide, y'all. And if you remembered, me mentioning earlier, this is actually pretty general information. So yes, I like the get involved slide. Um, you can actually share this information with folk in your community, with folk in your staff, folk in your family, in your network. And we actually encourage anyone who has interest to offer this, share this information. To next slide, actually connect with Cirque, connect with one of our organizers um, if they are in your region. I could also put my email in the chat if you want to reach out to me. Basically, anyone at Cirque, the organizers and myself at Cirque have been really prioritizing sharing this information. So you'll see on the slides in front of you, we actually have some upcoming um, training sessions for y'all to learn how to give these trainings, how we learn to share this information, what tools we use, like the scripts we were using for these scenarios. If you are interested in attending a virtual webinar, so maybe you can't make it to a training close to you, or you want to get this training ASAP, we're going to have a statewide virtual training on January 4th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It is an intensive training for 3 hours where we're going to give you all the information you need to offer these trainings, some tools and support to make sure that you feel equipped to offer these presentations. If you do find yourself in the Denver area or you have the capacity ability to travel to Denver, we encourage folk to sign up for an in-person. They're called Train the Trainer workshops. Um, Sessions where, like I just explained, you can learn to give this training. So January 10th, we're gonna have an in-person training at the Cirque office here in Denver from 9 a.m. to 12. On the 10th, this one will be fully in English, and then we're actually gonna have a train the trainer session fully in Spanish the following day in our office. So January 11th, we'll do the Spanish train the trainer model. If you do know our wonderful organizer, Beatriz, they're actually hosting a train the trainer workshop like the one we're doing in Denver, but in Palisade. So for folk who are closer to there, if it just works better for you, please reach out to Beatriz or sign up for that training. Um, and lastly, we're gonna have another train the trainer for service providers, specifically in Westwood, at the end of January. So if you're interested in any of these trainings, especially the training with not a date yet, please fill out, I believe, the registration links that are getting included in the chat, or feel free to reach out to your local organizer. And I'm gonna pass it over to my compañera Naida really quick.
Yeah, just really quick. So sorry. I know that these are mostly focused in Denver, and so, but we do, through our organizers, are planning other general Know Your Rights trainings for community, as well as train the trainers in other parts of the state, such as Pueblo, northern Colorado, different parts of the West Slope, in the mountains as well. So, yeah, definitely we would encourage you to reach out to our regional organizers if you're interested. Also just want to, in the spirit of like jumping into another Trump 2.0, we thank you for your patience and flexibility as we're getting inundated with these requests right now. And so if you haven't heard back from us on a request, thank you for your patience. We do point you to these opportunities while we get in touch with you. and specifically the train the trainer, perdón, webinar on Saturday, January 4th that JD is leading. Yeah, would encourage folks to join that as well. So, and in the chat, we're including the registration form. And also, if you are interested in requesting a Know Your Rights training from CERC, whether it's a general Know Your Rights training for community and allies or a Train the Trainer, we'll also include a link to our Neon or online form. Thank you. That's all.
No, thank you, Nida. Definitely, y'all. We encourage you to tap in with any of these trainings. If you would like to share this information or invite someone from your org, from your network who would be a great facilitator, disseminator for this information. Um, we're gonna change gears a little.